real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. And of course, we're now counting down to Prime Minister's question, when the Prime Minister will appear in the House of Commons. We're having a look at the chamber now. And we always have a guess, don't we, Andrew? What will Kemi Badenoch use? There's 7 questions for us.
She's going to talk about only one story. It's a gift for her. It's the latest U-turn, which is the compulsory digital IT has been abandoned now. It's going to be a voluntary system, which will be in place by 2029. I've got grave reservations as to whether it ever happened at all. Because if it's voluntary, what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what was the point of it in the first place? I never got it.
And it wasn't in the manifesto. So had it been in the manifesto and had Labour been elected anyway, then there's a democratic argument for bringing it in, however much you might personally dislike it. But it wasn't in the manifesto. Nobody voted for it. The other thing she could ask about are these wind farm auctions. So this is where the taxpayers are going to subsidise businesses to build and operate these wind farms. A huge subsidy given to these renewable energy operators every year, and it's just putting the cost of our bills up. So she could ask about that.
Yeah, she could. But do you think she'll just go on a level of competence? Because that's when she does quite well. But I mean, she could list the 13 U-turns. That would be quite effective. Yeah, and speculate about what are the next ones, because the pub U-turn we've included because they are going to change the rules on business rates for pubs. But hotels are saying we're affected just as badly.
Yes.
There was a report the other day saying that up to 20,000 businesses could be impacted. This is all key to our high street. Yeah,
and of course the Treasury initially saying that it wasn't aware of the imminent rise in business rates.
How could
now
they not know?
A Treasury representative saying in the House of Commons yesterday that they were publishing regular reports, so how could the government not know? There's also many international events that Kemi Badenoch could question Keir Starmer, even not least the United States position on Greenland. We've just had this breaking line from Donald Trump expressing again that United States needs Greenland. It's putting Keir Starmer in a difficult position. Who does he support? His close ally Donald Trump, or our even closer allies in Scandinavia, including Denmark, who actually owns Greenland?
I know. And of course, don't forget, he's said that he's going to send some of our troops to do military exercises on Greenland as a way of showing support for the Greenland
Trump
people.
Will be terrified.
Oh, I know.
It is a difficult one. But again, I do wonder if Trump is actually just trying to frighten Europeans into stepping up their military investment to try and make NATO stronger.
And I also suspect that the military base on Greenland, where the Americans are, will be boosted. The numbers will go up, and that will be seen as a big win for Trump.
Well, this is why I don't understand why he needs to own it, because there are no barriers already for him stationing US forces and assets on the base. He's got them there already. Yeah. But I suppose he's sending a signal to Russia and China that he's interested in the future of Greenland.
Imagine getting a posting to Greenland. Oh, dear. Cold and dark for very, very, very long parts of the day.
Well, that's perhaps why only, is it 60,000 people live there?
56,000.
56,000 people live there.
Entire population.
It's a small town. Imagine the entire population of your country being just 56,000
I know. And if you think...
You'd know everybody, wouldn't you?
You would. And if you think last year, nearly 40,000 people came here illegally to this country, on a boat. That's three-quarters of the population of Greenland came to this country illegally on a boat. Send them to Greenland. Yeah.
I don't think they'd welcome that. I think they'd declare independence
would
quickly.
we have to pack them woolly jumpers?
A lot, definitely. Well, the French would provide that, surely.
Yeah.
They provide the life jackets.
Exactly. Now, the Prime Minister, we gather, is in his seat on the front bench. Kemi Badenoch is there too. They're limbering up. The chamber, as you know, Miriam, absolutely fills to bursting, and people are standing in it's standing room only, isn't it?
It is, and in the first half an hour of the day before Prime Minister's questions, so from 11:30 till 12, there are departmental questions. I don't know which department it is, but let's say, Department for Education questions. And if you're an MP and you've got a question in that half an hour, and it's a really important one for your constituency, and you're in this last section, it's very frustrating because you're asking what to you and your constituents is a very important question. But nobody can hear you, nobody's listening to the answer, and sometimes you get cut off because, of course, if the Prime Minister does walk in and is ready to start, then that question time gets cut short. So it's quite an intimidating thing trying to get an answer out of a minister in that last 5 minutes when everybody's just gearing up and getting excited about PMQs.
Well, we can go to Prime Minister's questions, right?
Lincoln Job. Question number 1, Mr. Speaker. Very well done.
Mr. Speaker, can I start by condemning, in the strongest possible terms, the sickening repression and murder of protesters in Iran? The contrast between the courage of the Iranian people and the brutality of their desperate regime has never been clearer. Mr. Speaker, we've called out this brutality face to face. We're working with allies on further sanctions and doing all we can to protect UK nationals. Mr. Speaker, time and again, under the party opposite, towns and cities across the north were failed. Today, this Labour government delivers change. A major new rail network across the north and a new northern growth strategy. That is the renewal that this country voted for. This morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks, particularly about Iran. Visiting schools in my Spelthorne constituency is one of the great joys of this job. So I was frankly appalled to hear that the Labour Member of Parliament for Bristol North East was prevented from visiting a school in his constituency because he is Jewish. This is anti-Semitism and it is happening in plain sight. With all due respect to the Prime Minister, I don't want to know how he feels about this. I want to know what he's going to do about it.
Can I start by thanking him for raising this case, because it is very serious, very concerning, and all members of Parliament should be able to visit anywhere in their constituency, schools or other places, without any fear of anti-Semitism. We do take this seriously. We're providing more funding for security and support we're putting in across the country, and we will be holding those to account who prevented this visit to this school.
Annalise Midgley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for his commitment to delivering the Hillsborough Law. But it has been proven that following the Manchester Arena bombings, MI5 spent 6 years misleading the public and concealing information. There was no risk to national security because it was a closed hearing. So will the Prime Minister deliver justice for those families and confirm that this government will bring forward an amendment that will make robust the duties and responsibilities of candour for all parts of the state, including individuals in the security services, so we can finally say never again?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank my honourable friend? The Hillsborough Law will right wrongs of the past, changing the balance of power to ensure the state can never hide from the people it should serve. And I would like to acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, I think some of the families are in the gallery with us here today, and I will be meeting them later on this afternoon. I've always been clear the duty of candour applies to the intelligence services. I made a commitment we wouldn't water down the bill, and the amendments we put forward strengthen it. It is right that there are essential safeguards in place to protect national security, and we've got that balance right. We'll meet the families and we'll outline the next steps on Monday in relation to that crucial balance.
We come to the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I agree with the Prime Minister's comments on Iran? Today, Irfan Soltani faces execution for protesting in Iran, and I'm sure the whole House will be united in condemning this. Our thoughts are with him and his family and the brave protesters fighting for their freedom against an evil regime. Mr. Speaker, I know the Home Secretary will be making a statement today on the West Midlands Police. The first thing that she should be announcing is the sacking of the Chief Constable. And I thank the member for West Suffolk for relentlessly pushing this issue. Mr. Speaker, can I welcome the Prime Minister's latest U-turn? I feel like I say that every week. Mandatory digital ID was a rubbish policy, and we on this side of the House are glad to see the back of it. But yesterday, the Health Secretary said the Prime Minister's New Year's resolution should be, and I quote, to try to get it right first. To try to get it right first time. You did say that. My question is, does he agree?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm determined to make it harder for people to work illegally in this country, and that's why there will be checks, they will be digital, and they will be mandatory. And I'll tell her what this government is doing, whether on planning, child poverty, employment rights, investing in our NHS. We're taking the right choices for Britain, and they oppose every single one of them. And she talks about U-turns and consistency. From the party that used to recognise the challenge of climate change, and now they run from it, who promised to cut immigration, but then lost control of it, who once took great pride in our diversity, now they talk of deporting our neighbours to achieve cultural coherence. And Mr. Speaker, on consistency, don't get me started on 5 Prime Ministers, 6 Chancellors, 8 Home Secretaries, 16 Housing Ministers. They had more positions in 14 years than the Kama Sutra. No wonder they're knackered and they left the country screwed.
A lot of waffle, Mr. Speaker, but it's still a U-turn. The member for Hull East has said, it's so interesting, Mr. Speaker, Labour MPs must think very carefully before defending policy decisions publicly. He said, and I quote, "This stuff leaves us looking really stupid." I'm sorry to tell him, but Labour MPs have been looking stupid for a long time. But let's look, Mr. Speaker. Let's look at some other things the Prime Minister didn't get right first time, starting with the family farms tax. Some farmers were so terrified they sold their farms last year only for the Prime Minister to U-turn 2 days before Christmas. Will he apologise for the misery he's caused countless farmers?
Mr. Speaker, the principle we put in place on inheritance tax is the right one. We listened, we made an asterisk. But what we're doing is turning the country around. Yes, we've changed the country. We've changed the failed approach of the last Tory government. They crashed the economy and sent mortgage rates through the roof. They left millions stuck on NHS waiting lists. They presided over the worst Parliament for living standards on record. Now we're turning that around. We're changing that. Inflation and interest rates are coming down. Waiting lists are coming down. Wages are up more in the first year of a Labour government than 10 years of the Tory government. But I understand, Mr. Speaker, that she's taking advice on change. She had Nadeem Zahawi in to ask his advice. How to change and how to save her party. Please don't tell me she listened to his accountant. The next day after the advice, he jumped ship to reform, the 23rd former Tory MP to do so. I don't know which is more pitiful, the flood of former Tory MPs deserting her sinking ship, or the Reform Party so desperate to launder any old failed Tory politician.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister doesn't need to worry about me. I'm all right. And didn't hear an apology. I didn't hear an apology to the farmers. Has he even apologised to the member for Penrith, who stood up for farmers only to have the whip removed? This Prime Minister treats his MPs so badly. They follow his lead, and he hangs them out to dry every time. Let's turn to another area the Prime Minister has got wrong. His budget doubled business rates for thousands of pubs. So can the Prime Minister tell us, is there going to be any change to his business rates policy?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we're working with the sector to ensure that they get the support that they need. I have to say, the Leader of the Opposition's newfound concern for pubs will come as a surprise to anyone who remembers the 7,000 pubs that were closed under the Tories. And as Business Secretary, she didn't say a word about it. So we support business. We also support workers, Mr. Speaker. And that's why we passed our Employment Rights Act. And on Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the Business Secretary and I went to Croydon to discuss our Employment Rights Act with workers there. They were very keen on the paternity rights and the maternity rights, which I know the Leader of the Opposition opposes. And whilst we were there at IKEA, they showed me their new prototype, the IKEA Shadow Cabinet. The trouble is, nobody wants to buy it. It's mainly constructed of old dead wood. And every time you lose a nut, it defects to reform.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't answer the question about business rates. It sounds like he doesn't know what his policy is. And this has been a farce from start to finish. On Monday, the Business Secretary said the Chancellor did not even realise the impact of her business rates policy. No surprise there. But yesterday, the Tax Office said that they did tell the government what the impact would be. So can the Prime Minister be clear? Did he understand the impact of his own policy on pubs?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we're working with the sector. She hasn't explained why she said nothing about the 7,000 pubs that closed on her watch. We're doing other things on the cost of living to help people, to make sure they can get out, to spend money in pubs and hospitality, boosting a minimum wage. What did they do? They opposed it. Freezing rail fares and prescription charges. What did they do? They opposed it. £150 off energy bills. What did they do? They opposed it. She said nothing when pubs were closing, and she opposes every measure now. And she said a moment ago, I'm all right. She clearly didn't listen to the advice of Nadeem Zahawi, because what he told her, he's now made public. He told her that they failed on mass migration, they failed on our armed forces, and he told her that she's leading, his words, a defunct brand the nation can no longer trust. No wonder he's joined the Tory migration to reform. Mr. Speaker, it's the second Boris wave.
Mr. Speaker, I asked him if he understood the impact of his own policy. He didn't say yes. The reason he U-turns all the time is because he is clueless. He is blowing around like a plastic bag in the wind, no sense of direction whatsoever. And let's be clear, Mr. Speaker, this mess goes beyond pubs. The whole of the hospitality industry, cafes, hotels, restaurants, they're all being clobbered by Labour's tax hikes. There is an answer to this. Conservatives would abolish business rates for small businesses on the high street. Mr. Speaker, yes, they're all chuntering. He's already agreeing with us on family farms tax. He's already agreeing with us on digital ID. Why doesn't he make it a hat trick and abolish business rates for the high street?
Mr. Speaker, they crashed the economy, and now they want to give lectures. She's wondering why nobody's listening to them. Nobody is ever going to listen to them on the economy ever again. Mr. Speaker, in 18 months, because of the decisions we've made, inflation is falling, and the Bank of England say it's coming back down to target. We've had 6 interest rate cuts in a row. Wages are up more in the first year of a Labour government than under the first 10 years of their government, and we beat the forecasts on growth for 2025. We're turning this country around after the appalling mess that they left it in.
He says no one's going to listen to us. Who's going to listen to him? The winter fuel allowance, U-turn. Waspy women, U-turn. The two-child benefit cap, U-turn. Grooming gangs inquiry, U-turn. The family farms tax, U-turn. Digital ID, U-turn. Jury trials, U-turn. We hope so. We hope so. I think that's going to be the next one, Mr. Speaker. Week after week, these poor people sitting behind him have to defend the indefensible, only for him to U-turn a few days later. Mr. Speaker, one of his cabinet ministers told a journalist that what's happening at the moment is extraordinarily bad. Another said we've gone through a catastrophic series of missteps. Yet another minister said, we are so unpopular at the moment, I've come to the conclusion it's worth rolling the dice on a new leader. They're right, aren't they?
Mr. Speaker, here's the difference. I changed my party, and that's why we stand here with a majority Labour government. She sits there with her party that lost 2/3 of their MPs at the last election, and she's losing more every week. They're queuing up to join the member of Clacton's laundry service for disgraced Tory politicians. Meanwhile, inflation is down, wages are up, and waiting lists are down. Labour's turning the corner and changing this country for the better.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you will agree, and I hope others across the chamber will also, that we need to recognise and to celebrate achievements. And I say this because across the country, knife crime offences is going down. And of course, more needs to be done and more should be done. But this week's figures have shown that London has had its safest year ever under the London Mayor Sadiq Khan. And in fact, homicide rate in London is the lowest ever since records began. Now, Mr. Speaker, Reform and the Conservatives repeatedly talk down our capital city. So will the Prime Minister join me in saying they are wrong, and will he applaud these achievements?
Well, she draws attention to the important work of the Mayor of London, and nobody should be talking our country down or talking London down. And she's right to say that since we came into office, the number of knife crime offences is down, but, Mr. Speaker, there is more to do. We're introducing new powers to seize knives and increasing the penalty for selling knives to under 18s. And the party opposite, what did they do? They're chuntering. They voted against those provisions. And what's obvious about London and Reform is they've got a candidate for mayor who doesn't like London, a new ex-Tory recruit who struggled to pay his taxes in this country, and a leader who spends more time in France than in his constituency.
Sir Ed David, leader of the Liberal Democrat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself and my party with the Prime Minister's comments on Iran? And can I encourage him to go even further on sanctions and also prescribe the IRG? Mr. Speaker, Sandra is 71. She has bladder cancer. Just after Christmas, she went into her local A&E. She had to wait 31 hours to be admitted on a plastic trolley and in a plastic chair. Last year, more than 500,000 people waited for over 12 hours in A&E to be admitted, more than any year in the history of the NHS. Mr. Speaker, this corridor care crisis was created by the Conservatives, but it's got worse under Labour. So will the Prime Minister end this scandal by taking up our plan to end all 12-hour A&E waits this year?
Prime Minister.
Can I first say through him to Sandra that that's simply not acceptable for her or for anybody else, and I'd appreciate if he passes that on to her directly. We have put record investment into the NHS so that we can turn this problem around, and we are turning it around. I would say to him that he puts forward his plans for change, but he never votes for the increase in investment and the measures that are needed to actually put that into practice. You can't change things without investing in them. You can't call for change and vote against a budget that puts a record investment into the NHS.
Sir Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker, we saw what happened to the last government when they failed to improve the NHS, and if the Prime Minister is not careful, that will happen to his. Mr. Speaker, last month I asked the Prime Minister to get a grip of South East Water, who'd left thousands of people in Royal Tunbridge Wells without water. Now it's happened again, not only in Tunbridge Wells, but in East Grinstead, Burgess Hill, Havers Heath, and other parts of Kent and Sussex. Families, pensioners, schools, care homes, businesses without any water since Saturday. And the water company bosses involved now stand accused of misleading Parliament over their failures. Mr. Speaker, South East Water keeps failing its customers over and over again. So will the government immediately strip them of their licence?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising this, because the situation is clearly totally unacceptable. He will want to know that ministers have chaired daily emergency meetings to hold the company to account, to deliver on the change that's urgently needed at the moment in all the areas that he mentioned. We've also doubled the compensation rates for individuals and businesses, and we're absolutely clear the company must urgently invest in infrastructure, and we'll publish the Water White Paper in due course, but we are holding those daily meetings to hold this company to account.
Dr. Maria Timble.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted by today's Northern Powerhouse Rail announcement. A down payment on the north of England's future. Fulfilling Lord Blunkett's rail plan for Yorkshire also included upgrades to the Penistone Line train, the spine that connects South to West Yorkshire, coursing through 8 constituencies, serving 500,000 people. When I was growing up, my dad opened Silkstone Common Station as a Dodworth councillor. I want my legacy to be 2 trains an hour Tidball for our Penistone line. Will the Prime Minister meet with me to discuss how we can secure funding for the second phase of the Penistone Line upgrade scheme to achieve 2 services an hour?
Prime Minister.
Can I pay tribute to her as a dedicated campaigner on this and so many other issues? And I'm delighted that today we're announcing a transformation in journeys across the north. Of course, it was said and promised many times by the party opposite, but never delivered. We're taking action and delivering. We're working with Kirklees Council to prepare the business case for the first phase of upgrading the line, and I know the Transport Secretary would be happy to discuss the details of that with her.
Robin Swan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Question time last week, the Prime Minister seemed to intimate that the government was bringing forward amendments to the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill. Within hours of him saying that, the Irish Government's Minister for Foreign Affairs said that any significant changes must have the full agreement of both governments. So, Mr. Speaker, can I ask the Prime Minister, is he intending bringing forward amendments to a flawed Troubles Bill and give a reassurance that the Irish Government does not have a veto over legislation in this House?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising this and tell him I spoke to the Taoiseach in December about this, and I know he's committed to delivering on this. The new legacy unit has been established within the Garda, and I'm confident the Irish Government's other commitments will be delivered as set out in the joint framework. For the first time, information held by the Irish authorities is being shared with a reformed Legacy Commission, meaning more families and victims of terrorism getting information about what happened to their loved ones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Prime Minister's leadership and our government's clear commitment to tackling child poverty, recognising that high-quality education is one of the best routes out of poverty. However, young people in one of the most deprived areas of my constituency, attending Churchill Community College, have been taught in temporary accommodation for over 16 months. Can the Prime Minister use his good offices to expedite funding from the Department for Education to support rebuilding this school? Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Can I say I'm very proud of what we're doing on child poverty, lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. The party opposite says their policy is to plunge them straight back into poverty, and they should be ashamed of that. The situation she draws my attention to is appalling. Parents and teachers are furious that the party opposite left schools literally crumbling. We invested, Mr Speaker, £20 billion to rebuild around 800 schools, and our aim is all schools and colleges in England that aren't being fully or substantially rebuilt to be rack-free by the end of the Parliament, and I'll make sure a Minister meets with her to discuss this.
Morrison. Thank you, Mr Speaker. I visited Stepping Hill Hospital in my constituency, where I met the incredible team there, but they are working in some of the worst conditions. The staff there showed me the wards where sewage is coming up onto the floors through the drains, and they showed me the ceilings where water is dripping down out onto vital equipment. The hospital itself has a £130 million repair bill, and the Prime Minister is the man that can change this. So will he meet with me, the member for Hazel Grove and the member for Stockport constituency, so we can talk to him about this issue, get some investment in, and then get the hospital that my constituents deserve?
Well, I thank him for raising this, and he knows we inherited a terrible situation with waiting lists, performance targets missed, and hospitals like Stepping Hill left to crumble. They should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. I'm pleased the new outpatients building is open, and because of our decisions, the local trust will receive £75 million in capital funding. Progress is being made. His local trust has seen waiting lists fall by almost 3,000. The number of waits over a year is down by 67%. I will make sure he gets the meeting that he wants to discuss the details further.
Emily Darlington.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. If reports are correct, Elon Musk has climbed down today under pressure from this government. And let's be clear, stripping women naked without consent in real life or online is abuse. But we don't know whether to trust what X is saying today, and this isn't just happening on X. So will the Prime Minister join me and men and women across this House and our nation to say to any app and to any AI company that we will not tolerate and we will enforce any abuse of men, women or children in this country?
Can I thank her for raising this? The actions of Grok and X are disgusting and they're shameful. And frankly, the decision to then turn this into a premium service is horrific. And we're absolutely determined to take action here. We've made it clear that X has to act, and if not, Ofcom has our full backing and will introduce and are introducing legislation. Mr Speaker, to update the House, I have been informed this morning that X is acting to ensure full compliance with UK law. If so, that is welcome, but we're not going to back down. They must act. We will take the necessary measures. We will strengthen existing laws and prepare for legislation if it needs to go further. And Ofcom will continue its independent investigation.
As someone with a personal experience of AI-generated images, the recent AI images shared on X, particularly those of children, sickens me. Yet, the leader of Reform continues to defend Elon Musk. Anyone who defends platforms linked to sexual exploitation of children forfeits any right to give lectures about protecting women and girls. What will the Prime Minister do to stop any political party from putting tech billionaires ahead of protecting our children?
And I thank her for raising this, and it's astonishing that Reform defend Musk on this issue. It is complete. I said the images are disgusting. Their position is disgusting on this. This is weaponising images of women and children that should never be made, and that's why we're acting. Reform refused to do anything about it, but more than that, the point she raises, they would scrap the Online Safety Act that stops children accessing content like pornography, suicide, self-harm and eating disorders. They're an absolute disgrace and know nothing about protecting children.
Can I just say, we're only on question 18. If we don't want to get MPs in, please, you're going to have to work with me. Kemi.
many of my constituents from Stevenage were appalled to hear Reform MPs oppose the principle of deploying British troops to maintain a peace in Ukraine. Our brilliant armed forces have defended democracy in Europe across a generation, so it is shameful that the leader of Reform opposes that today. That is not leadership, it is surrender. Does the Prime Minister agree that Labour governments always have and always will defend British interests, not those of Russian dictators or oligarchs?
Mr. Speaker, this is a question of values and freedom, and I'm proud of the British workers in his constituency, in fact, supporting our Ukrainian allies. Ukrainian soldiers are defending European values on the front line every day. And, Mr. Speaker, in the event of a ceasefire, multinational force will carry out defence and deterrence operations and conduct training, planning, recovery and regeneration of Ukrainian forces. But this week, the leader of Reform said Russia had a casus belli. That means a justification for war in invading Ukraine. A Putin apologist using Russia's talking points.
Lewis Cocking.
Mr. Speaker, the world is becoming more dangerous every single day, and the Ministry of Defence has said it needs an extra £28 billion to keep us safe. Well, I know where the Prime Minister can find it. Stop this nonsense Chagos Island surrender policy and spend that money on protecting the United Kingdom. Will the Prime Minister commit to that, or will he continue to put the interests of foreign governments and countries above our own?
Diego Garcia is a vital military base with important capabilities for our own. It's integral to our security. Our decision was welcomed by our allies, the Five Eyes, India and the United States. It was opposed by our enemies, including Russia. Now we can add the Tories to that list and Reform to that list. The Tories following Reform, Reform following Putin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to offer my condolences to the families of the 4 people who died in the road traffic accident which occurred over the weekend in my constituency. Mr. Speaker, families in Bolton South and Walkden are already benefiting from this Labour government's action on free school meals, free breakfast clubs, 30 hours funded childcare, scrapping of the 2-child limit, taking nearly 500,000 children out of poverty. But in Bolton South and Walkden and across the country, there is a chronic shortage of social housing and genuine affordable homes. Will the Prime Minister now show the same ambition on housing and commit to a major expansion of social housing?
Prime Minister.
Can I just say that my thoughts, and I think the thoughts of the whole House, will be with all those affected by the terrible road traffic accident in her constituency over the weekend, and our thoughts with all of those so awfully impacted. On her question, we are determined to restore the dream of home ownership. That's why there's been £39 billion of investment to deliver the biggest boost in social and affordable housing in a generation. Through planning reforms, the New Homes Accelerator and New Towns, we're determined to deliver the homes that people need.
Not Blue Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I welcome the Prime Minister's commitment to the violence against women and girls strategy, but I and many have concerns about stigmatising young boys, men and masculinity as inherently toxic, especially when suicide is the #1 killer for young men. So is it about time that we have a Minister for Men and Boys? Because this is about women and men, not women or men.
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for his support on what we're doing on violence against women and girls? Can I also agree with him that this isn't about women or men or boys or girls, it's about both, and that's why I was very pleased to bring forward our men's health strategy, one of the first of its sort, to deal with the challenges that young men in particular, in my view, have growing up, particularly with social media, but also to go further on the question of suicide. And I know that that's something that the whole House is prepared to work together on, and quite right too.
Caroline Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As trade envoy to New Zealand, last year I visited Eden Park in Auckland to hear their exciting plans to bring the Edinburgh tattoo to New Zealand. Well, next month that plan becomes a reality, and one of Scotland and the UK's greatest military displays will be taking place in Auckland. This spectacular event is testament to the exciting and successful trading relationship between the UK and New Zealand. Will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating and thanking everyone who's made this a reality?
Can I thank her for raising that, because the Royal Edinburgh military tattoo is absolutely brilliant, as anybody who's seen it will attest, and I'm so pleased that it's heading to New Zealand, and I think it's another example of Scotland's unique contribution to our international image, our culture and tourism, and I think we all wish them the very best of luck in their performance, and I know it'll be very well received.
Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The police fabricated intelligence to get Israelis banned from Villa Park, as demanded by Islamists. It's not an isolated case. Forces cut deals with dodgy mosques and refuse to arrest preachers who incite violence. The CPS uses the Public Order Act as an Islamic blasphemy law. In prison, governors do deals with Islamists to maintain order, and we all know about the rape gangs. So will the Prime Minister launch a review of the corruption of our criminal justice system by Islamists and the politics of communalism?
Prime Minister.
I disagreed, as he knows, with the decision of the West Midlands Police, and the Home Secretary will be making a statement in relation to it today. Mr. Speaker, the Home Secretary used to have power to remove Chief Constables. That power was stripped by the 2011 Police Reform Act. The honourable member knows who was making decisions in the Home Office at the time. It was him, working for Theresa May, that stripped that power away.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and a belated Happy New Year. But for the 4.8 million leaseholders across England, it's not a Happy New Year. They're going to be receiving large bills in a matter of weeks. They've been waiting patiently for us as a new government, a government that said we were going to deliver that change to bring forward the legislation on leasehold and commonhold. So I want to ask the Prime Minister, when will we see that legislation so that we can put those leaseholders out of their misery?
Well, can I thank her for raising this really important issue, and we are bringing forward proposals very shortly now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 35,000 children, including my constituent Clover, live with uncontrolled, life-threatening epilepsy. Those who can afford it are already benefiting from prescribed medical cannabis, yet families face endless delays, confused trials, and a Home Office process designed for criminal misuse, not healthcare. Will the Prime Minister meet with me and affected families to move paediatric medical cannabis out of Home Office control, create a pathway for proper trials and NHS access, and ensure that all children with life-threatening epilepsy get the care they deserve, regardless of their family circumstances?
Can I thank you for raising the case of Clover? NHS England and the National Institute of Health and Care Research recently agreed funding for 2 world-first clinical trials relating to the use of cannabis-based products. This could help see medicines more routinely available in the NHS, and I'll make sure that she gets the meeting that she wants with the relevant minister to discuss what else we're doing.
Helena Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people I represent are fed up with Southern Water, from sewage to broken pipes and water outages, even on Christmas Day. In November, millions of plastic beads washed up on our beaches, and we discovered they'd come from a Southern Water treatment plant. I'm now campaigning for water companies to stop using this outdated plastic bead method and bin the beads. We're really concerned about the impact on wildlife, and we have a massive clean-up operation on our hands. Over 5,000 people have already supported my campaign with Sussex Wildlife Trust. Will the Prime Minister join me in sharing his horror at this dereliction of duty from Southern Water and calling on them to face the full force of the law for this terrible pollution incident?
Can I credit her with helping expose this scandal and working with her and everyone in her community, volunteering to clean up the beaches. That is the very best of who we are. But people are right to be furious that for far too long water companies were allowed to get away with polluting our seas and beaches. The Environment Agency are leading a full investigation, but we are more generally ending unfair bonuses for polluting water bosses, abolishing Ofwat and introducing tougher penalties, holding companies to account.
Then the best objective.
Mr. Speaker, ahead of the forthcoming consultation on local government reorganisation, last month Huntingdonshire District Council voted for option E, a Huntingdonshire Unitary Council. This was a cross-party view and the Prime Minister's own Labour councillors voted in favour of it. There is a suspicion locally that the government favours option D, proposed by the Labour Eastern Regional Office, which would see Huntingdonshire and my constituency split in two and combined with Peterborough. Can the Prime Minister offer assurances to my constituents and those across Huntingdonshire that the decision isn't already a done deal and that the democratic will of Huntingdonshire District Council won't be overridden to satisfy an unelected Labour regional office?
Prime Minister.
There are no done deals here. We're going through the proper process.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The staff at West Herts Teaching Hospitals Trust, which operates Watford General in my constituency, have been very busy bees. They have recently won Trust of the Year and Performance Recovery at the 2025 Health Service Journal Awards. Will the Prime Minister join me in congratulating the amazing team at Watford General and thank them for all the hard work that they have done to achieve this admirable accolade? Imagine what further achievements that they will make when they have their new hospital and new facilities.
I will join him and thank the staff in his hospital, but also the NHS staff across the country who worked so hard over Christmas and New Year, which is notoriously a difficult time.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front benches change over.
That was Prime Minister's Question Times. As expected, she couldn't resist highlighting the number of government U-turns of late. So let's go straight to Westminster Hall and join our political editor, Christopher Hope, who's been watching from right inside that chamber. Chris.
PMQs getting longer and longer. 12:40 it finished, really because of those exchanges there between Kemi Badenoch and Sir Keir Starmer. I counted 7 U-turns listed there by Kemi Badenoch. Of course, digital ID being the latest, that was overnight. The PM gave us some news there, I think. He said that illegal working checks will be digital and mandatory, but they won't, of course, be required to have a digital ID. That's the difference. They're working with the sector, he said twice, that's the pub sector. We're expecting news on the pubs changes and a U-turn, arguably, since the budget on the business rates. That to come probably Monday or Tuesday next week. And I thought they hit there by the PM saying that the Tories oversaw 7,000 pubs closing on their watch. They should answer to that question too. Of course, he's right. Not surprisingly, Reform UK came up again in colourful ways. The PM called the defection of Nadeem Zahawi, added to the 6 other former Boris Johnson adjacent Tories there. The second Boris wave, that's of course the Boris wave is linked normally to net migration. He talked about reform as a laundry service for disgraced politicians, which raised a smile. And he also criticised Nigel Farage for defending Elon Musk, the owner of X. Of course, the PM also gave some news out on that too. He says that X is now acting to ensure that Grok can't be used to make sexually explicit images of girls or women. Also, a signpost of the big debate coming this year about British troops on the ground in Ukraine. The PM attacked Nigel Farage and his Reform, a group of MPs there, calling them a Putin apologist for opposing troops on the ground under current circumstances. And just finally, he trailed what's coming from the Home Secretary later, this statement on Craig Saunders, the West Midlands Police Chief. He's apologised to the Commons today for misleading about what he knew about the Tel Aviv Maccabi game and relying on some internet programme which may not have been right. The PM said there that in the past, Home Secretaries could remove Chief Constables, but the Tories removed that power. That signifies to me what's coming towards Craig Saunders, but of course Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, can't remove that person. That's for the individual Police and Crime Commissioner.
Well, Christopher Hope, thanks very much indeed from a rather sunny Westminster Hall. Joining us now live in the studio is the Labour MP for Cramlington and Killingworth, Emma Foodie, and the Shadow Housing Minister from the Conservatives, Paul Holmes. Emma, we're going to start with a question that we've got in from Ray. Thanks, Ray, for sending it in. Ray asks, the government hasn't really done a complete U-turn, have they? On farmers, it's partly been U-turned. On pubs, we're still waiting to hear the details. On ID cards, it's only the mandatory aspect that's been removed. Are you at risk of annoying people who support the policy by U-turning, but annoying people who oppose the policy by not U-turning all the way?
I think, and the examples that you've just listed there, Tom, demonstrate a government that's actually able to listen and to recognise and to change things where we think that we haven't quite got things right, but also to reflect on the concerns and the interests of people up and down the country. And what that results actually in is better policy making as a consequence. I think what we saw under the previous government in its various incarnations was a situation where they would come up with a policy and regardless of the evidence, regardless of whether people thought it was a good idea or not, they pursued it on and on and on, and it resulted in bad policy making. So I think that what we're able to do is to listen and to improve on the policies that we're coming up with.
I don't think Boris Johnson's government was particularly famous for not U-turning. I mean, isn't it the case that actually what we're starting to see with Keir Starmer's government is that you've got that same sort of refrain, and Kemi Badenoch mentioned this at the start of Prime Minister's questions. You've got ministers going out to defend a policy, then the policy changes, and then the ministers or the backbench MPs, like you, end up embarrassed about having supported that policy. That's exactly what happened under the previous Conservative government.
I think actually what we saw under the previous government were examples of them pursuing and indeed throwing taxpayers' money at policies which were bad policies. Examples like Rwanda, where it was very clear that it was never going to work, it was never going to achieve what the government at the time was setting it out to achieve, but we're just throwing more and more money at it rather than accepting that actually it was time to reflect on the fact that it wasn't going to work and come up with a better way of doing things.
Paul Holmes, the Prime Minister responded to Kemi Badenoch when she listed all those U-turns and said, well, your party in government had more positions than the Kama Sutra. I mean, let's just look between 2015 and 2019. Never mind the policies. You couldn't even decide who should be Prime Minister of our country. We had Theresa May, then we had Boris Johnson, then we had Liz Truss, then we had Richard... This is in 4 years.
But this is worse, because these are policies
this
that
is worse than having four...
we lost the election and we were accountable for that. But this government is putting policies forward that weren't in the manifesto. This has nothing to do with listening to the British public. This is the pressure of Labour MPs getting in their post boxes, their constituents, unhappy at policies they never promised in the first place, and it's about a Prime Minister that doesn't have a backbone and changes his mind the whole time.
Do you think that you do need to distance yourselves further in order to recover further as a party from the premierships of Boris Johnson and Liz Truss? Have you said sorry for that period to the country?
I think Kemi, for a long time, apologised for the mistakes of the last government, and we have been very clear in doing that, but she's made it very clear that the party's under new leadership, and every time she has challenged the Prime Minister, she has got it right. He's U-turned on everything that she said was a bad idea. That's leadership.
Now, Ronald has got in touch to ask about the cost of living. It's something that affects people right up and down this country. And Ronald's saying he's finding himself deep behind in rent. He can't claim any benefits because he works part-time. It sounds like he's having a really tough situation, but clearly he's not alone. And one of the difficulties, perhaps, for this current government is that it was elected on a promise of change. That things would get better. And for a lot of people, for viewers like Ronald, it seems things have got worse.
I think, Tom, and look, Ronald's experience is an experience that I've heard from many, many of my constituents, that for too long things have been too hard. And I think what we're hearing loud and clear is that real frustration, and that they really want to see the change that they voted for at the last election. And I think what we will see this year is the ability for a lot of the things that we brought forward since being elected is those actually coming into effect. So whether that is the Renters' Rights Act, which will provide further protections and will support people, whether that is the Employment Rights Act, which will provide further protection for people in insecure work, along with prescription freezes, price freezes, rail freezes, both of which are also in themselves de-inflationary measures, which are going to bring down inflation, which is going to further bring down those costs, along with interest rate costs coming down.
Is there the risk, though, that in trying to do these policies that sound nice on the surface, the Renters' Rights Bill, for example, what we've seen is landlords selling up. People are being kicked out of their homes ahead of that act coming into force. We're seeing similarly businesses potentially laying people off as a result of the Employment Rights Act. In fact, the government acknowledged that it was damaging in some ways because it accepted some amendments in the Lords over this. It seems that some of these examples you're putting forward sound nice in theory, but in practice are bad for employment and jobs.
I think for those people who've been evicted as a result of no-fault evictions, I think they would strongly disagree that the further protection that we are putting in place for them is a bad thing to have. But also when it comes to employment rights, we worked really closely with business on this to make sure that actually the things that we're putting in place are going to inherently help them ensure that they've got a more secure workforce that is more productive. And people with having more money in their pockets at the end of the month is fundamentally a good thing.
Well, Paul Holmes from the Conservatives, you've got to give them credit. Obviously, the cost of living was a huge issue under your government, under this government, but they are making a difference, they would argue.
What the government would argue?
More GP appointments, free prescription charges, rail fare freezes, the minimum wage up, more rights at work.
Who is paying for this? What this government forgets is that they list off a reel of policies, but they've brought in more taxation on business. Unemployment is going up every month that this government's been in power.
So which of those policies would you reverse?
Growth isn't there, and we have to have growth and lower taxes in order to fund those public services. They can't have it both ways. People out there are struggling because this Chancellor and this Prime Minister has made it worse for the people that give people well-paid jobs.
But that leads me to say, and anyone to say, well, of those things that I've just listed, what would the Conservative Party get rid of? Would they say, actually, the minimum wage is too high? It's too high.
No. We would have an entirely different approach, which is what we did last time, which is to have growth in the economy. We wouldn't tax businesses, hospitality businesses in particular,
to
lay off people.
Economy?
We had relative growth in the economy, but we certainly had more growth in this government, and employment was higher than what we've seen under every month of this government.
But it was
if you
the first
tax business, you harm people.
Where living standards fell. The first period of government in history that living standards.
Well, let's not forget we had two major interventions that we didn't expect to happen. The first was the COVID, and the second was Ukraine. COVID, we kept people in work. The Labour government opposed that at every level. They wanted more lockdowns. That's what they wanted to do. We made the economy grow.
That is a complete rewriting of history.
No, I was there.
Keir Starmer, as leader, was very clear at the time in the opposition that we supported the measures that were taken by the government to make sure that people who were on furlough and etc. were supported appropriately.
Every week he criticises the government for the record that they had under COVID. He stood up every week under that last Parliament and opposed the lifting of restrictions that we had.
Paul.
Pardon?
COVID was not 14 years long.
No, but it was a pretty big event. It was a pretty big event, and he stood up and opposed everything that we did.
Sharon from West Yorkshire. Should we just bring Sharon from West Yorkshire in? It's quite brief, but obviously you say, well, we made some policy proposals, but, you know, we got that they weren't quite right, so had to change it. You say there were a number of reasons why things weren't quite right under your time. Sharon from West Yorkshire says this: what mechanisms are available for voters to stop policies that are damaging to this country? Should there be better checks and balances on our policy making, Emma from Labour?
Well, I mean, we have a general election every 4 to 5 years, so those are the most inherent constitutional ways in which people can make their voice heard. But look, local MPs, Paul, myself, of all parties, will always engage with local people to understand their concerns and what they want.
I think Sharon and the people that she speaks to are having an excellent record on changing policies already, because everything the Prime Minister said, he U-turns on, so she's doing better than we are.
This is, of course, one of the fascinating situations. We don't have much time left, but Emma, I want to ask, are you confident that this will be it for U-turns? Or do you worry as a Labour MP that when you get out there and defend the next policy, it might change the week after?
I think that as we have set policy, we seek to engage with everyone on that to make sure that we are able to put forward the best possible policies and that we take them forward. And I hope that that is something that continues.
OK, fair enough. They listen,
They put things right, they listen to their constituents, and they go up and say, hang on, Prime Minister, that's not quite right. He changes, fair enough.
No, the reason the Prime Minister changes his mind is because he knows he can't get it through the House of Commons by a divided party, and expect 2 more U-turns, the first on jury trials and the second on business rates for pubs. That's my prediction.
Looking forward to a U-turn on business rates for pubs, Emma?
I don't see how it can be a U-turn when the Chancellor's been very clear that she's engaging with the sector to see how we can best support the hospitality sector on top of the 4.3 billion that we're putting forward over the next 3 years to support them. That's not a U-turn.
Well, Emma Foodie, Paul Holmes, thanks indeed for joining us. One thing I think is sure, this is not going to be an event-less
Come back next week with all your brilliant questions. Thank you so much to everybody who sent them in. Thank you for watching. Don't go anywhere. He stays with you for Good Afternoon Britain with Nana.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. The driest day of the week for many of us throughout today. Heavy rain will move into southern areas into Thursday with the potential for some quite strong winds. That's as these fronts develop into an area of low pressure through this evening. But before then, ahead of that, we've got a ridge of higher pressure through much of today. So plenty of sunshine to come, particularly across England and Wales and some eastern areas of Scotland seeing dry weather through much of the day. But as we look further west, into parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, we'll see strengthening winds and some heavy bursts of rain as well through this evening. It will be quite a chilly day, particularly compared to the past couple of days after that frosty start this morning. But with the lighter winds and sunshine in the east, I think it won't feel too bad at all. But the wet weather will become more widespread through this evening, and some of that rain will fall as snow over northern areas, particularly over the high ground of Scotland. But we could see some sleety snow across lower levels just for a time into this evening across parts of Scotland and into northern England as this band of rain moves eastwards. A band of rain will push up into more southern eastern areas of England as well into this evening. So quite a lot more cloud around as we end the day than we will have started with, and wet weather will push eastwards throughout tonight. As I said, potentially some sleety snow falling across lower levels of northern England, but very little in the way of accumulations. Then as the night goes on,